Hello, everybody. Welcome back again to Cosmic Owl Astrology with Louise Eddington. I am here today with your week ahead forecast for July the 5th to July the 11th. Can you believe we're already in July? Anyway, oof, wild times, wild times. I did a whole video for the month that talked about the big aspects throughout the months. And of course, these weekly videos will go over some of those again, but also kind of drill down into even more detail and kind of give you a little bit of more detailed guidance for each week rather than the big picture. So, before I forget, don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. Thank you to all you kind people who were really nice about the ignorant personal comments on my YouTube. And, to those that don't like me complaining about it or saying something about it, that's okay. You can go. I don't, somebody's like, you shouldn't chase off your followers. You should put up with this. I don't have to do anything. And this is what I want for you too. You don't have to tolerate things that are unacceptable to you just because other people think you should. Okay? That doesn't mean that I'm hurting them. I'm just going, okay, don't follow me then, right? Simple. I don't know what people like. Oh, it's your job. Actually, writing and astrology and shamanism and doing classes and mentoring other astrologers is my job. Social media is a medium to talk about it. Okay. Anyway, that's all. So here we are for the week ahead, as I said. So it's another big week. We have two more retrograde stations, and we also have the last quarter moon, and these are the cards. You can see them on the screen so that they're here all the time pretty much. Anyway, the Seeker of Vessels, Seer of Bees, Three of Seeds, and this is the Creatrix of Cunning. Sorry, you can't see that very clearly. So here's the cards. And as usual, I will go over them in full at the end. But as I get set up for the week ahead, how's your Mercury retrograde station doing? I'm recording this on Wednesday, July the 1st. I've got to turn my calendar around, but I'll do that afterwards because you can't see it anyway. And the retrograde station itself has been a little bit of a nightmare for me, really, because we had our credit card was compromised, and it's our main credit card, and we've got it linked to pay lots of things, auto pay and stuff like that. And so we had to have that cancelled and get a new card. But even more Mercury retrograde-ish is that we didn't get a text notification to call the fraud department at our bank, which we usually do. So I'm like, why isn't this payment going through? So I called and they're like, well, you can keep trying, but your card's got to be cancelled. And I'm like, but you didn't tell me. Anyway, very, very Mercury retrograde-ish. I'm not complaining. It's just, it's not the end of the world, right? And a couple of other things, this whole thing about the rude comments feels very Mercury retrograde-ish too. And there was one other thing. But anyway, either way, it's been, technical thing. Oh yeah, that was it. Just this morning, I went on my usual walk with my iPhone and my AirPods in. First, my AirPods wouldn't connect, so I had to quickly walk back and get a different pair of headphones because I just couldn't figure it out. Then, whether I put on YouTube or Audible or whatever, everything was playing at 20 times the speed and going, so I had to reset my whole phone. So there's Mercury retrograde stories. Not exactly life-threatening. So, don't sweat the small stuff. It's inconvenient. takes time, feels confusing, but you'll be okay. So I'm getting the chart up behind me. Here we go. And sorry about, I think it was last week, where I tried to do this, but my Fathom note taker was showing instead of the chart. I don't know why it didn't share. Perhaps because Mercury was stationing. So here's the week at the start. So we start the week, July the 5th, with, so here we go. So the moon is in Pisces at the start of the week, about halfway through. Remember, it spends just over 2 days. The nodes are back at 0 degrees and are heading towards moving into Leo and Aquarius, and more change coming. Neptune is stationed. Neptune is stationing retrograde this week. Well, it's actually saying going slow. That's actually stationed. And what else? This is Okiroe. If you're wondering, this is Hekate. I've added Urania because one of my members of my Spiral Codex has been talking a lot about Urania, and I noticed that she was here with this cluster of asteroid Lilith and Ceres as well. And Urania is very related to astrology, but she is also, just think of her word. It's very like Uranus, right? And Uranus is about the big picture, god of the sky, kind of things like that. But Urania really represents the archetypes of astronomy, astrology, and cosmology. But she is also related to our natural affinity for the mysteries of the universe, mathematics, and just all symbolic languages. Okay, so that's why she's very connected to astrology in so many ways. All right, let's go through the aspects for July the 5th, for the first day of the week, Sunday, July the 5th. As I said, the moon starts the day in Pisces. We'll make a sextile to Pholus. Remember, he's taking the lid off all these things that have been out of integrity. In Capricorn, that means structural integrities as well, right? And we've saw the devastating damage in Venezuela from the big earthquake, or 2 earthquakes, because their buildings were really not built to withstand that strong an earthquake. I hate to think what the death toll will be in the end. It's just hideous. But you can also see that the moon is near Black Moon Lilith. So there's elements of the shame or shaming in the structures. Go back to my last video about astrology and neurodivergence. But anyway, so, all of those things. It works on so many levels, where you have been shamed, where you feel shame, and where you are not taking it anymore. Okay, so then after that little aspect to these two, the moon will trine the sun. So this is the day of the USA's actual solar return. July the 4th, of course, is the 250th birthday. But July the 5th is the day the sun returns to the point it was at on July the 4th, 1776. But this is a closing trine, water trine. Things are closing again, more things. I told you, it's a process, spiral over and over, right? Okay, things are changing, and maybe not as dramatically as we'd like, but they are. Then the moon will square off to these 3. Urania that we talked about, Ceres, needs, met and unmet, nurturing, supply chain ideas as well, what feeding us, what we need in all ways. And this is in the sign of community, which actually reflects with one of the cards at the end, And this is asteroid Lilith saying, talk to the hand, not doing it anymore. All this is sitting on my moon, so you can perhaps understand why the video I just made before this. Anyway, then Mars. It's kind of funny that people go, oh, you don't like kind of my thoughts on this. You don't like the fact that it's, it's off-putting to do this. And I'm going, okay, bye. Just realised I didn't have Mars on the chart. So Mars was conjunct Uranus the day before. I already talked about this in the big picture video for July. But Mars reaches that 4-degree mark and makes an air trine to Pluto. So this is activating that basket, Barbo's basket. So please go and watch that July video. It gave a real breakdown of all of this. And in the comment, in the description, it contained a brilliant article about the Barbo's basket and about the cyclical index. So I don't want to repeat everything. But Mars and Pluto tend to be quite dynamic and quite driven to change and transform, and Mars is moving away from Pluto. So due to what's being dug up and the shadow that we're seeing and the crap we want to throw out, change is being made in Gemini. Radical change, Uranus. Okay. Then Chariklo over here, sweet Chariklo, spinner of grace, is going to make a supportive aspect of opportunity to Eris, the table flipper. Remember, Chariklo is holding space for us to write this new story that I know is going to be written. And I've been predicting this for a long time. And I think when people hear those words, they're hoping it's really soon. But, it's going to be over the next couple of years. Things are going to change so much. And then it's going to, all be kind of rejigged and resettled by the mid-2030s, I think. But the Barbo index, cyclical index, speaking of that wonderful article, is rising to its peak from this year to 2028, which means good things are coming. Okay. So we're hoping to flip tables and write a new story. Then the moon over here, still in Pisces, will conjunct Nessus, the toxins, the abuses of power that say, come on, in Pisces, we're kind of seeing all this toxicity, because Pisces can be very much to do with poisons and so on, and hidden things, and it's being out damn spot again. Then over here, lovely Venus will oppose Chariklo, but of course that means that she is making a fire trine to the table flipper as well. So she gets to 25 degrees and opposes Chariklo and activates Eris. And I remind you that Venus is leading the pack of all the planetary bodies out of the massive concentration we've had all year. First in Capricorn, then in Aquarius, then in Pisces, then in Aries, then in Taurus, and then somewhat in Gemini, and now it's really splitting up. Venus is leading the way of all these planets, and Venus opposes Chariklo and says we really can create something very different that's more heart-led, more compassionate, more kind, more graceful. Grace. Okay. But you have to flip some tables sometimes to do that, right? Okay. July the 7th. Oh, back to Monday. Okay, so here we start the day with the moon still in Pisces, and the moon makes that watery trine to Mercury retrograde, which is now on the move backwards. And again, we're reviewing, we're reflecting on, but we're also kind of washing away some old ideas and beliefs and things, and saying, no, I don't have to do it that way anymore. I can do this differently, or I can speak about it differently, or I can think differently about it. But it's all up to the individual, not somebody else to tell people how to think and what to say and what to do in any way. It's just, I don't know why people don't get it. But anyway, then Mars in Gemini will square off to Hecate, who is also stationed to go retrograde. She is going to go retrograde the same day as Neptune, which is the 7th, the very next day. So Hecate is at a standstill. And Mars squares off in mutable signs. And she is the way shower, remember, the torch at the crossroads. And we're at this major crossroads right now. And Mars is becoming more of the protector, the guardian, if we work with him, and saying the way forward is not this way of attacking, putting me first, might is right, it's my way or the highway. Mars is saying change your perceptions, change how you speak. Okay, then the Pisces moon will make a trine to Hygeia, preventative health. We're kind of seeing what we need to do now to become more holistic, and to know that we are all in this together. And then the Sun squares off to Saturn, and this is an opening square as well. So, the Sun was back with Saturn back in Aries season, but now they are squared in cardinal signs, new beginnings. And this is right after the USA's birthday. I don't think there's any coincidences ever. I do really think a new USA is coming. I don't know what it's going to look like exactly, but it's going to, I think it's going to be good. This is in watery sign. Sorry, this is in a water sign. This is in Aries, a new start. Saturn in Aries is very determined to create something new. It's pioneering. Well, I'm not going to talk about politics, but I'll let you think where that's going. And then the moon will move into Aries for a couple of days at 11:07 a.m. on July the 6th, Eastern, of course. And then once the moon is in Aries, it will make a fiery grand trine to Jupiter in Leo. That's very creative and passionate. And Jupiter in Leo can be a bit bombastic. So this might bring out some more of this bombastic behavior from certain people of thinking, might is right and all that. But the moon in Aries, the people saying, oh no, burn that one down. No more kings. We're not doing this anymore. We're going to do things differently. Then the moon will start to sextile all of this with a sextile to Sedna, which is adaptability. We have to adapt because climate change is really bad right now. Okay. Saturn will be squared by Black Moon Lilith again. That the shaming again. Saturn is the guide for Capricorn. And this is kind of saying we can build differently. There's no need to feel shame about this, that, and the other, where you are shamed wrongly or where you feel shame internally because of these societal messages. All right. And then the moon will sextile Uranus, which is radical changes coming, fire and air, because the moon will be in Aries. Fire and air is just so creative and so fast moving. I'm a bit worried about wildfires again. It's heating up this week here again in Utah. Fire and air kind of brought so much wildfire, literally. But think of it more energetically for you, right, as we move through this period. Fire and air is kind of Phoenix, burn it down, rise up. Somebody accused me of unhealed rants or something, and I said, actually, this is me healed. This is me having done a lot of work to fully trust and accept who I am fully, and to not take any more of this crap. And I don't just do it on YouTube, I do it everywhere in my life. To my mind, that's becoming fully whole and not putting a lid on it and playing nice. You might have your own version of healing, but I think people that talk about unhealed things really should look at themselves first. Okay. Anyway, the moon then gets to 4 degrees and activates Neptune. So it's activating that basket again. The moon, the people, but also emotional response, all of those things and Neptune knowing that we're all in this together. And then the moon will sextile Pluto again, activating the Barbo's basket at 4 degrees again. Transform, the moon moving away from Pluto, more fire and air. And then the moon will sextile Mars, so giving you the drive and the push to be the change we've been waiting for, to quote the Hopi prophecy. On to July the 7th. Tuesday, the moon, first of all, you can see it in Aries, will sextile Juno, our contracts asteroid. But by far the bigger aspects during the day are that Neptune will station retrograde at 6:54 a.m. Now, Neptune is going to be retrograde till December the 12th, so just over 5 months. All these slower moving planets are in apparent retrograde from our perspective, retracing old ground for about that period of the year, depending on their orbit. But, you know, it's the time around the stations that are huge. So Neptune stations, bear with me, I'm actually going to get it exact, at that 4 degree mark, which is the degree of the basket. So Neptune stations retrograde 6:54 a.m. on July the 7th at 4 degrees in really in aspect to Pluto. Uranus is now at 4 degrees, but Neptune is stationing. This is tide turning. Okay. Neptune really is going to revisit over the next 5 months this period of this time, since it was pretty much since the Saturn-Neptune conjunction earlier this year, of turning tides, of revisiting what needs to go, what needs to be washed away. But then, so that's at 6:54 a.m., but then so soon after, beg your pardon, Hekate at 10:22 a.m. So 6:54 a.m., then 10:22 a.m. Asteroid Hekate stations retrograde, and she starts to head back to that 4 degrees mark as well as we're heading towards that basket. Now Hekate will be retrograde until October the 6th, and she will go all the way back to 23 Aquarius and meet up with the spinner of grace who's helping us to write this new story yet again. So, you know, again, it's the times around the station that are most impactful and the degrees, but 5 is a number of change. But she is going back over with her torch, if you like, and her keys to the underworld, and revisiting and retracing some steps and going, how are we going to rebirth this future? Pisces, the womb, Aquarius, the future in some ways. Okay, right after that, the moon did also aspect Pholus, but by square, but will conjunct Saturn. Okay, and it's also squaring Black Moon Lilith as well. So really we are saying we're going to build, new structures, but also if you think of Saturn as your skeleton, and then we have the vagus nerve going down the back, down the spine, this is about coming into balance and standing up for yourself in Aries. When we've made it not okay to stand up for yourself. It's like, people are horrible, you've got to put up with it. Well, why? I mean, in any walk of life. By the way, I'm not just talking about YouTube comments at all, you know me. I'm talking about, this is the astrology telling me this, that we have to start standing up for ourselves and each other and not tolerating what's cruel, unacceptable, and all that. So at 3:28 p.m., 3:29 actually, the moon gets to 15 degrees Aries, and we have the last quarter moon. The last quarter moon is always a crossroads in consciousness. So on the 7th, we have two planets, or planetary bodies, Hecate's asteroid, I know, stationing retrograde. So that's a crossroads, a turnaround, literally as well, with the goddess of the crossroads. And so is the last quarter moon. Crisis really means a crossroads. Anyway, the last quarter moon is at 15 Aries to Cancer, and I want to read you the symbols for that. So we always go up, so it's Aries 16. It's one of my favorites because I was a literal brownie Girl Scout, young little one. So it's brownies dancing in the setting sun. If you don't know what brownies were, they were nature spirits that come out as the sun sets and clean up and kind of do all the, connection kind of thing. But anyway, James Burgess says that this is deep mystical resonance with life, tuning into nature spirits and deep mystical awareness of essence. Okay. He says, when the body is weakened by whatever, okay, this allows our subtle body of light to resonate more with the nature spirits. He means by like tiredness or, feeling a bit depleted or sensory deprived. Okay. But he says by doing so, we become stronger and gain potential, which is important for both recuperation and taking further initiatives to extend our influence. Do we not all feel invigorated by natural elements, the wind, rain, sun, and stars? So this is about nature, getting into nature. But there's another little interpretation on James Burgess's page, is about becoming like a little child, living in a holistic, non-rational, intuitive manner. Okay. Now then, the other symbols. The Omega symbol for this degree is to rejuvenate themselves. A person is partially buried in the earth. I love this one. But let me read you John Sandbacher's interpretation first. But he does say the degree angel, Hakamiya, is about dumping depression. I like that one. But he says the Omega symbol is you are able to connect to earthly existence in a direct, full manner. When things have become too confusing, complicated, or too lost in realms of speculation and fantasy, you know how to reground back into physical reality. Through your intense and periodic reconnection with the physical world, you renew yourself and those that you touch. That's why I walk every day. But the Chandra symbol as well is 3 sculptured birds, 1 black marble, 1 white marble, 1 solid gold. Fullness and completeness of thinking, the Chandra symbols, three birds are thinking, can only reach its full potency when there is a complete grounding of the mind. To say it another way, contact with the earth realm provides the mind with a laboratory, a place to grow and experiment and to see how thoughts and concepts play out. This is the essence of alchemy, rejuvenation through repeated immersion in the physical, buried in the earth, experiencing consequent cycles of death and rebirth until oneness within is attained. Right? It's what my whole Venus retrograde class is about, because it's a constant immersion into your underworld and then come out in, and then cyclical again, immersion. But your body is the cauldron, remember, of alchemy. Okay? All right, so on after the last quarter moon, we're now heading into the waning moon phase. The moon will sextile Ceres, will sextile Urania, will sextile talk to the hand asteroid Lilith, changing your perceptions, working with the community, pulling those patterns together with Urania, pulling those pieces, seeing, all of those things, and interpreting this cosmic order, intuitively grasping the cosmic order. It's and she's also associated with universal love, by the way. So fire and air, creating something new again. And then the moon will come up and conjunct Pallas Athena, wise justice and strategy, and Vesta, your inner flame. It is to be, it's up to me, or we are the ones we are waiting for. Hopi prophecy. We're there now. We each have to do our part. So, moon, Aries over here, moves, we'll square Mercury, first of all, onto earlier in the day on July. Sorry, that's because I'd got it to the last quarter moon. 12 a.m. Let me move it back to the start of the day, because that made my neurospicy brain a little confused. So anyway, at the start of July the 8th, Wednesday, we've passed the biggest day of the week, but of course it's at least 5 days each side for the Neptune station, particularly that tide is turning. So we can feel that things are shifting and changing and tides are turning again. So the moon in Aries at the start of July the 8th will come over here and square Mercury retrograde. We're getting a look at what we're revisiting, remembering, maybe feeling a little nostalgic about, but also saying we have to let it go. We can't, there's no going back kind of thing. And then Okiroe, Chiron's daughter, Chiron and Chariklo's daughter, the seer, the prophet, she squares off with Juno. She is foreseeing that the matriarchy, or whatever you want to call it, is rising. And it's in so many ways. I would say that all these democratic socialists that are winning in this country are matriarchal kind of energy, because I know we have these linear, rational definitions of what it all means, and really, Mamdani, for example, the mayor in New York, is putting childcare programs in and rent freezers and things like that, and doing things for the good of the people. So I'm not saying, anyway, well, I am. I think he's awesome, but he's just doing the work. You can let all these ideologies go and just say, well, actually, he might have gone under that umbrella but he's actually just doing good for the people he represents, right? Anyway, so Moon over here in Aries will sextile Chariklo. Another reminder that we're weaving this new story. And then the Moon conjuncts the table flipper Eris and says, tables are being flipped. Things are changing. Tables, districts, whatever. There was a woman in Colorado, an immigrant who beat an incumbent Democrat by miles because the incumbent Democrat was not really working for her people. You know, again, I don't care what side you're on. These are examples of what's emerging. So then the Moon will square off to Hygeia, remember preventative health, and then the Moon will trine Venus at almost the very last degree, 28 degrees of 56 minutes of Aries and Leo, of saying we're creating this more yin, feminine energy from the heart. All right, so on to, have I got the last day? Oh no, then the Moon will move into Taurus at 4:30 p.m. for a couple of days, and the Moon will immediately conjunct Chiron, who is visiting Taurus. Remember, we're healing we're seeing the wound and the gaping wound around our connection with the earth, particularly, and our senses, going back to those symbols, and then we can find out what the medicine is. Okay, so the Moon will meet Chiron for the first time in Taurus this time. I think it is anyway. Then the Moon will aspect the nodes. Remember, they are about to change signs, not this week, but on their way. And then the Moon will square off to bombastic King Jupiter in Leo, who's being led by the tail by Venus, really. But this is the Moon has just hit Chiron. This is no more kings. This is saying Jupiter in Leo can be a different kind of leader and lead from the heart. Okay. And then at the same time, though, pretty much the Moon will oppose Haumea, regeneration. So really, this is a fixed T-square. We are starting to put things in place. Things are starting to be put in place to regenerate something very different. Okay. On to Thursday. Not many aspects for this day, but we do have one big sign change. The Moon, first of all, the Moon starts the day in Taurus, of course, will square off to Pluto, activating again this Barbo's basket. Everything's at 4 degrees. Remember, it's kind of the peak later in the month. Go back over the other video but you'll see it emerge. And the Moon will make a aspect of opportunity to Hekate, who is still at the station point, really. And, we're revisiting again. We're kind of having a little look back and saying, all right, what are we going to ground in reality? Okay. And then the Moon will square off to Juno, our contracts, and then the Moon will meet the seer Okiroe in Taurus. And this is this kind of feel it in your body, feel it in nature as well kind of energy. You can perhaps foresee that there's going to be problems because Okiroe was punished. But also, if we can foresee some problems coming, we might be able to do something about it, right? Okay. So, then Mars. Mars will actually trine Juno, air trine, take different action with local communities as well in Gemini to rebuild these contracts with each other. And Mercury over here will move back to 22 degrees and revisit a water trine to Nessus, revealing how we can be better ancestors, okay, and change our thinking. And then Venus, I will get this one exact, is moving into Virgo. So she moves in on July the 9th, and she will be in until August the 6th. So 4 weeks, a fast move through Virgo. Venus in Virgo gets a bad rap, in my opinion, because it's supposed to be, you know, uptight and puritanical, but actually it wants to do the right thing. Venus is in Virgo, really is almost like ultimate kind of giving, bringing meaning, creative meaning, or creating meaning into this future that we are heading towards. But it's a big ingress. I mentioned it in the other video I did, but let me move this forward. So as we move through the day on July the 9th, Venus has moved into Virgo earlier in the day at 1:22 p.m. Meanwhile, the moon over here is aspecting these over here, but it's and sextiling the sun, but it's a little bit overshadowed by this because first Venus meets Regulus, and Regulus moved into Virgo from our perspective, the royal star at the end of 2011, and Venus, after this big compression of planets, is the first here. Okay, now Venus has been over this point a few times since 2011 because she'll go past it around once every year, depending on retrogrades. But the bigger thing is that the South Node and Venus and Regulus are all at 0 degrees and all converging. So 5:22 p.m. on the 9th, Venus will meet Regulus. Soon to meet the South Node. And so on to Friday, Venus' own day. I love that she's doing all this on her own day, right? So you can see by the morning of the 10th, she's past Regulus, but you know, this is all at the same degree. This is very tight. But before we look at that, Jupiter, Jupiter in Leo will square off to Haumea exactly. Fixed signs, making things real, regenerating from the heart as Jupiter heads towards the drain of the South Node, of the old ways that we are leaving behind. It's going to be interesting when they meet, but we're not there yet. Venus then will trine Chiron. So, you know, Earth trine, talking, you know, there's so much fire and air, and you'll hear a lot of talk about fire and air right now. We are in the age of air. You know, there's a lot of new inventions. There's a lot of wacky ideas as well. I was listening to a guy that's written a book about the tech bros. He calls them the Tech Reich, because they've got some awful ideas. You know, Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, Elon Musk, but they're so wacky. You know, they see themselves as becoming these superhuman transhumans, and they'll go off and live in space. I'm not seeing it, because we are being pulled back down to this connection with each other and Earth overall. So these Earth aspects and the water aspects are very important for that, for pulling us down. And that's why I think it's important that Venus is crossing this South Node as she heads towards her inner heroine's journey, which is what I'm doing the class on, of initiation into the bodily cauldron. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so that's and then yeah. Okay, and then Venus actually conjuncts the South Node. So I'm going to get exact because it's worth looking at. So on July the 10th, sorry, not June, Friday early in the morning, on her own day, right, Venus now meets the South Node, only 28 minutes from Regulus. And Regulus starts to end towards Regulus, the royal star, no more kings. And now Venus will start to move towards the North Node. But by the time she meets the North Node will be back in Aquarius. It's all going to look very different. So this is a big shift. 0 is the alpha omega, infinite possibility, the Fool card in the tarot, kind of taking this leap off the cliff into we know not what, because we are heading into this period of the unknown with the baskets and all the things. But Venus, the feminine, the goddess, whatever you want to call it, but also our relationships, love, the heart, social mores, is leading the way. Okay. So after Venus meets the South Node, where's the moon? The moon in Taurus has been pretty quiet, but the moon will then sextile Mercury and heading towards it, kind of letting go of more old ideas, also letting go of some nostalgia and things of this, oh, it was so good then, we're never going back. Look on it with fondness, but let's move towards the future, to creating a better future, right? And then the moon will also sextile Nessus. It's in the midpoint, really, of these two. Like, we are learning how to be better humans and better ancestors overall. And then Jupiter in Leo will sextile, adapt, or whatever. You've got to adapt. Sedna, fire and air, big adaptations. Big adaptations. But it's all going to start happening really fast, I think. Then the moon will square off to Chariklo and sextile Hygeia, all at the end of the signs. So, this is all moving us towards this more receptive, balanced, yin, yang, right brain, left brain, intuitive, all those things, and rational. I told you it's been coming. Every aspect tells me that. But then Chiron aspects the nodes. So Venus earlier on the 10th was conjunct the South Node at this time. And by 5:50 p.m., so just over 12 hours later, Chiron aspects the nodes as the nodes are finishing this journey. This is, a real kind of opening of the wounds about our sensory connection and our core values and the earth itself, and our relationship to the earth and nature, and our relationship to money and hoarding and value and all those things in Taurus. Chiron is having a good look at it and saying, but we're going to change that. With this, we have to adapt. Again, back to that story. Okay, then the moon will enter Gemini. I'm actually going to move the moon into Gemini because it's easier to see. So the moon will be in Gemini for the end of the week, because it's in for a couple of days. So 6:41 p.m. Eastern, the moon enters Gemini and immediately squares the nodes, right? That's a turning point now too. And then this waning moon, because it's heading towards the new moon, starts to head towards this drain. Now then, I do actually want to show you something. Conjunct. July the 16th, the moon will conjunct the South Node at that 0 degree mark. But look how close these are now. This is only, 6 days after Moon square the nodes. So this is another crossroads, turning point towards that drain of leaving the shadow Virgo behind, you could say, but I'm going to say it's leaving this Age of Kings behind in many, many ways and stepping into the Age of the Priestess energy. Interconnectedness, meaningful things, more crafts, kind of getting back your hands in the dirt kind of energy again. I think more and more people are all coming back to that. And then after the moon squares the nodes, of course, the moon will square Venus at 1 degree. Big change, new starts. Let's do it. And then the moon will conjunct Sedna, adaptability, will sextile Jupiter. Big change coming. My God, big change is coming. And I know it scares a lot of people, but it's going to be okay. Of course, there will be some things, and compassion and love to anybody that's hurt in this time of transition, of course, but I can only reassure you for the bigger picture, right? How you work with the energies and respond yourself is up to you. So on to the last day of the week, the Gemini moon activates this basket, conjuncts Uranus, radical change, light bulbs, trines Pluto, sextiles Neptune, and Jupiter is now heading towards that 4 degree mark, which will make the basket at its peak. Well, I looked at it on that longer video, but we'll look at it again over the next coming weeks. But, this is huge. This is all at 4 degrees now. We're in it. We're in this time of unprecedented shifts, transformation, radical change. The new earth is literally in its cradle or basket, right? That's how I see it anyway. The moon will also square Hekate, who's, that way shower with a torch, still at 5 degrees. Change is coming, but I've got to go back and fetch these energies. She's going to go back over the North Node and to Cariclo. Watch this over the next week or so as we move through those times. Then the moon will trine Juno, our contracts, and conjunct Mars. This is action and emotions, and the people saying, we've got to change. We really have to change. And we have to change now. We have to change how we see things, perceptions, all of that. Then Venus, lovely Venus over here, sextiles Haumea, regeneration. Incidentally, Pluto and Haumea have been in this ongoing square since 2022, 13 squares. They've got, so the last one is in spring of 28. So there's that one, 2 more next year and 1 more this year. One of those is at 4 degrees, which is the degree of this first basket. The last one is at 6 degrees, the degree of the second basket. This is part of the big change. And somebody questioned, and they did get their own answer as they moved on, about Haumea being retrograde as we approach the peak of this basket. Well, she's going to station direct. And so she's going to start moving back towards Pluto and Neptune and kind of Uranus, except Uranus is faster. But in degree-wise, she's going to start moving closer. So I do think of her as the handle of the basket. All right, so just to clarify that. But Venus leading this way will make that opportunity aspect to Haumea regeneration. I really think, these are opportunities for people to do the right thing. I do think we are going to have more women coming out. I just saw there was a Swiss model or something come out again talking about allegations that our apparent occupant of the White House had, sexually molested her. He says it's lies, but she's speaking up about it again as we start to enter this week. And then Venus will square off with Sedna. We have to adapt. And Moon over here will sextile Saturn, giving us a sense of real determination to be that change. And the Sun will square off to Pallas Athena, giving us a real push for bringing this wise justice and these strategies to create whatever we're creating. Mercury will square off to Vesta, retrograde, asking us to look within, to, into our inner flame and have these conversations with ourselves. And the last aspect of the week is the Moon will conjunct Ceres. 11:32 p.m. the Moon will conjunct Ceres. These two are moving on together, but this is, really looking at what will feed us, what will nurture us. But it's changing. People are doing things that will feed and nurture us, So it's changing perceptions. Things are changing, I promise you. All right, so the cards. All in all, it's a really more of a releasing week and a shedding and a tide turning crossroads week. Okay, so we'll look at the cards. First, the Seeker of Vessels. Vessels are cups, remember, emotions, water. Okay, this is a bowl. Look, there's a bowl here. It could be said to be scrying. All right. So the Seeker of Vessels is known as the Hydranoi. Okay, this is based on the Eleusinian mysteries again, by the way. Red Seeds Tarot. This is I Am Heart. You can see the two hearts in the cards. And they muddy the water to make it seem deep, Friedrich Nietzsche said. But this is saying, the gift of this seeker, the Hydranoi, is a pure heart that reaches out to let us know we are loved and cared for. This tempting soul tends to be dreamy, loving, and romantic. Some days we may be told we are the one and flattered for our beauty. It's truly meant at the time. Tomorrow, however, the wooing may be directed towards someone else. This is an energy that holds on to being in love and has little intention to plunge into a deep relationship. Their preference would be to stay on the surface of the water. And so this seeker wanders and dreams and pulls at our heartstrings. The mystery is that love lies in this seeker's cup, accompanied by a companion resident fish, symbolizing inspiration, intuition, and spiritual energy. Here lie the gifts of this seeker that can be fished out with a little diving into the waters. I'll leave it at that one. Then we get the Seer of Bees again, which is I am community. All that Gemini and all the aspects to it are pulling us into community again. But before the reward, there must be labor. You plant before you harvest. You sow in tears before you reap joy. This is seeds, which is planting seeds, but it's also earth or pentacles. So this card is about community, growth, and abundance. Something is being created and planted. It may be in early stages, it is. Sometimes we can envisage the way forward, but find it really difficult to bring in the actual harvest. This card suggests a path that may lead us to interact with others who can teach us or share with us the necessary skills to bring something to manifestation. We may join a group of people, a community, a partnership, or a team that may be involved in working together towards a final goal. It doesn't matter if we are the worker, the apprentice, or the teacher, for all are a part of the whole, and all will enjoy the satisfaction of the end result. May we offer our work and creativity to our community, to the world, and thereby become connected to something larger and greater than ourselves. Many hands make light work. Oh, that was the 3 of Seeds. Oh, sorry. I meant to read. Sorry, Seer of Bees first. Let me go back to the Seer of Bees. I just read you the 3 of Seeds, so let's swap them around. Oh, this is the, I'm not going to spell it. This is communication. But this is really the Seer of Bees. We've had him before. You can see him up there. This is swift, striking, a richness of knowledge with an intellect that is discriminating, creative, and intense. Communication and movement comes easily to this seer. Obviously, not me with the cards, but Mercury. Speaking to others is a gift he holds, and as an orator, he holds the attention of all. This is a natural leader who is courageous and assertive. On occasions, they may lose their temper and stamp off until they cool down. But this only happens when they are up against serious stupidity or wrongdoing. Listen to what this seer has to say, for they bring words of wisdom and messages from high places that will teach us things we don't yet know. Talk to the seer. Okay. Then we last of all have this creatrix of cunning, which we've had before, but this is the fox. Okay, let me read you from the book. Where is it? Here it is. Her name is Cunning. Foxes, like women, have deep cunning. The word cunning comes from an older Middle English word ken, a ranger of knowledge or sight. Within a toxic patriarchy, cunning women are thought of as conniving and manipulative. But a witch understands that a woman who uses her cunning or her ken employs the deep internal sight and wide-range vision that leads her to building an authentic life, true to her own imaginings. When we excavate our deep knowing and trust its messages, our soul sight grows, and trust its messages. This is trusting. Our soul sight grows sharper, and our instincts return to the untamed power we were born with. Sharpen your cunning to cut away what no longer serves. Your life deserves the fierce protection that feminine discernment can bring. There you go. What a week again. But oh, what a month. I'll link to the month of July video, but check it out, and don't always forget to check out the Venus retrograde class. I've also got a couple of other things coming up that I will talk about another time. Also, my featured articles are in the description. I was in Woman's World as well, and there's a couple of more articles. Bye.